Chapter 8. People were running in every direction, and the familiar hiss of gas hit Tim's ears. One minute, Leo and him were having a great time, trying on clothes and laughing at stupid jokes. But the next, the two were separated in a dark building that's slowly filling up with something. And with that something's pale green color, Tim's willing to bet it's one of the big leagues. Worst case scenario, Joker. But as people started inhaling the gas, they were writhing and raving and screaming like someone dying in a dream. It was fear gas. Scarecrow. And Tim ran as fast as his legs would take him. If he was going to help, he couldn't get caught in fear gas. Behind the tills in some random store, he snatched up any gas mask he could. 4. It was law to provide employees with emergency gas masks in Gotham, just in case. Putting one over his face, he ventured back out into the rabid crowds. He needed to find Leo. On his way through, there was a crying girl holding a bunny rabbit, hiding with her mother. Tim stopped and gave the pair a gas mask. Outside the food court, there was a man being attacked by another bystander, screaming bloody murder about his father. Tim fought off the bystander and gave the man a gas mask, enough so that he could escape and enough to guide the bystander near to the exit where the air was clearer. There was no sight of Leo, but there was sight of blurry red face weaving through the crowd and guiding people through the dark. The red hood was helping people. Hopefully more would arrive soon. Standing in the blinking black and white mall, another blur caught his eyes, the reflecting browns and oranges of a straw mask. He hadn't found Leo, and Hood was too far away to signal. In that moment, he made his choice. Leo would survive. He seemed to be very good at that. Tim ran after the blurry figure and followed the sound of whistling pipes. He continued until the crowd slowly disappeared and Scarecrow stopped. Half of Tim's face was covered by the gas mask, but he was recognizable enough that it might not matter. He needed to remain hidden. Still, he tapped into his smartwatch and signaled the others. Scarecrow talked to his henchman, voice harsh and scratchy. "He's hiding! Find him!" They dispersed accordingly. Tim crawled over to a small play area and waited behind a red truck kiddie ride. He listened as Scarecrow fiddled with his machines and hummed to himself lightly. What was he here for? Deep down, Tim had his suspicions, but he also had hopes he wouldn't assume anything. One of the henchmen returned. "There's a few strangers around the top floor, but no sign of the boy. And there's no sign of him outside. Jones hasn't seen him. We'll keep looking. If we don't find him, you're my next test subject." Scarecrow held up his needle threateningly, but the henchman was quick to leave. Whatever they were up to, they were all very determined to finish it. The villain grumbled to himself, the only one with brains. Can't find any good help these days." There wasn't much noise for the next few minutes. Scarecrow had his team searching the mall, but people were still filing out of the building, so progress was slow. It gave just the right amount of time for Tim's savior to arrive. The signal jumped out of the shadows, shining like the sun. He attacked Scarecrow with his eskrima sticks, but it felt like the man had endless henchmen to use up. Moving between the play area, Signal briefly caught Tim's dark form, and an awareness reached his movements, faster than most normal people think. But the bats aren't normal people, and that was the one thing Tim could routinely trust. Duke moved with knowledge and wonder. He questioned Scarecrow over the clinging. "What brings you here? Looking to buy some perfumes?" He accentuated his ask with a swing of his fist. The villain scoffed. "I don't buy perfumes." "Then why?" "Looking for something?" He banged his eskrima sticks to the Scarecrow's neck, but the man crawled back. He held his needles out, but Duke kept his stance. You haven't won. Duke cocked his head, playfully laughing. Yeah, 'cause you seem pretty finished to me. There will be others. More. You won't know rest. And then who'll be laughing? Scarecrow didn't breathe between his sentences. His words came out like a dying, sputtering engine. Others for what? The boy! He screamed like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The boy? The boy. The demon head is looking for his boy, and he's paying a pretty penny. Anything and everything in return for a boy. You're in for rough times. Scarecrow was definitely spitting under that mask the way he was screaming. Yeah? There was fake lightness in Duke's voice. And what are you getting? Scarecrow scoffed and turned his head to the side like a petulant child. Duke continued. All right, no more talking. He pushed the villain up and walked him towards the exit. Police and firemen rushed through as he did so, collecting up every lost sheep and giving them an antidote. Tim slipped right away before the lights returned to normal. It was late that afternoon and the sun was beginning its descent. People cried in huddles and ambulances came and went. Leo was outside with Jason. He didn't look good. There were dried tears streaking on his face. His lips were cracked and bloody. His hair was a mess. He shook without control, and he stared blankly at the floor. Earlier, the two explored Gotham. Leo loved old cartoons like Voltron, which was surprised to see existed in Tim's universe. He talked incessantly about anything that caught his interest, like when Tim spent 30 minutes answering every question he had about the Gotham train system. The boy had energy like no other and always had something in his hands. He kept handing Tim small creations throughout the day, getting embarrassed when Tim would stop playing with it. His black curls reflected grays and whites like flowing wave kept getting caught on his pointed ears. When he found something funny, his smile was lopsided, but when he was lost in thought, his small fangs came through his smile. There were no regrets in his steps, no chance to turn back, only go forward. He was insistent, uncontrollable, and absolutely electric. But here he was solemn, not even moving his fingers. And Tim had to tell him that Roz did this? Maybe that little fact could wait. He ran up to Leo. You're okay! The boy shook his head. He couldn't tell him about Roz, not now. Tim couldn't do it. We'll talk about this later. And then he left, gone to the paramedics. Leo wouldn't talk. Granted, Tim hadn't asked him anything yet. He had hoped his questioning looks would do most of the work. Bracing himself, Tim knocked on Leo's door. The boy was quick to open it and invite him in. In a matter of days, Leo had managed to pack his desk with bits and bobs and random bulbs that he had made. Tim had asked him the second day where he got all this stuff, and Leo showed him the wonders of his magical tool belt. That desk had become most commonplace to find Leo in the Wayne Manor. Together, the Bats had decided Wayne Manor was better than Tim's apartment. Alfred's presence alone comforted the boy more than Tim ever could, but he also didn't want to leave him alone there, so he took up a room near his. Close enough to be easily found, but not so close that he was taking up Leo's space. Now, face crestfallen and shaky hands betraying his sour mood, Leo sat still at the desk, working away. He didn't acknowledge Tim's pointed looks, so he had no choice but to just come out and ask, Are you okay? Yeah. Yeah? Yeah. He kept fiddling with his hands. After a pause, Leo spoke again. What actually happened to Jason? Tim took a deep breath. A lot of things. We're vigilantes. There's always something going wrong. With the Lazarus bits? Well, he looked back and forth between the door and Leo. He died, and the Lazarus pits brought him back. Leo was contemplative. Then he spoke. If it brought someone back from the dead, is that what it would look like? I don't know. Tim didn't like where this conversation was going. He hadn't spoken with Leo much about his powers. It didn't seem like he wanted to. I'm just thinking, there's a lot of people back home that I could bring back. He briefly glanced Tim's way like someone trying to hide a mistake. I knew a guy called Jason. He's gone now, but... He dropped everything in his hands and turned to face Tim fully. Did your contact get back to you? It was so easy for Tim to ignore the sudden change. Yes, after last night I called again. He's coming tomorrow to pick us up. And then he'll tell us more about... He waved his hands around. All this? No, but someone he knows might. Good enough for me. Not much progress was made on deciphering Leo's feelings during the rest of the day. The pair watched a movie in the game room, and Alfred eventually let Tim and Leo help make dinner. Mostly Leo. Tim's cooking skills were less than subpar. The way Tim saw it, most help he could give Leo in this situation was getting him home. Somewhere he had friends. Somewhere without Ra's al Ghul. So, who is this mystery guy? Leo asked while they were waiting in the foyer. Bruce was off to the side and Alfred stood beside him. The others wouldn't have been there too, but Tim insisted on this being quick. Otherwise, the mystery guy would never get on track. A friend of mine, Tim said. He continued when Leo made a questioning face. We're going with him to his house. I figured it's probably best to get out of Gotham for a bit and get you to see a bit of more of our world. Tim couldn't even begin to guess what the face Leo pulled meant. Sure, he said. Sure. Tim would be thinking about that for the rest of the day, but for now, the man of the hour had arrived. Boy was a better descriptor. Blurs of red and white surrounded the group like sparks from a firework, and soon the contact stood restlessly before them. Bart Allen, what a guy. He looked at Leo with his laser-like stare and spoke. You're the fire guy. Yeah, Leo laughed. You're the mystery guy. If you say so. Tim stepped into Bart's field of view. You remember what's happening? Yeah. Bring him to Max, then bring him to Barry, then bring him home. He bounced back and forth on his toes. And if we're lucky, we will be, Tim asserted. Leo gawked as Bart shuffled around the room like a train, leaving trail of colors behind him. Even now, Tim didn't quite understand what Leo's world was like. What was the full extent of magic of his world? The boy enjoyed being vague. Bart's a speedster, Tim explained. As in... Leo didn't stop staring. He has super speed. That's pretty cool. Being skilled in several martial arts was pretty cool too. Speedsters are a dime a dozen these days, and being smart is way cooler than any speedster. Intellect can't just be created in a freak accident. Not that it mattered. Tim caught Bart's arm as he ran past, stopping him in his tracks. The wind kept blowing forward for a second or two before calming. Let's get going. Tim turned to Leo. We'll go to Bart's house first, and Barry. He's a speedster too. He'll hopefully meet us there. He's been involved in probably too many interdimensional conflicts, so he's a pretty good bet to start with. With a nod from Leo, Bart grabbed his arm and blinked and they were gone. Tim waited. Bruce coughed into his hand. Soon, Tim was being carried away as well. It was so many years of experience with speedsters, and he still wasn't used to it. He could only imagine how Leo fared. Turns out not very well. He was throwing up in the bushes of Bart's backyard. "He almost threw up on me," Bart whispered. Max was already outside. "Bart explained it to me, but it might be better if you tell me yourself," he chuckled, holding the door open for the boys. Settled nicely on the sofa, Tim and Leo only had to wait for Barry. Bart had gone out to collect him, and Max figured the boys wouldn't want him hanging around. He was right. "What happens then, when you go home?" Tim picked at the sofa fabric. He didn't want Leo thinking he was some deep, serious conversation. Gotta keep it nonchalant. That's the strategy. "I don't know if I can keep these powers. I don't know. I just don't know." "You said you had someone you wanted to bring back?" Leo laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, I didn't mean that, obviously. That's stupid." "Why is it stupid?" "It just is." He turned away from Tim. There was a silence for only a moment. Leo was quick to turn back to him. He asked, "Is it wrong that I don't want to bring back the dead? Am I a bad person?" "No." Perhaps Tim answered too quickly. Leo didn't believe him. "Why not?" "It doesn't." Tim insisted. "Would you bring someone back if you had this infinite power?" "No." Too quick. Leo's eyes flickered. He searched for something in Tim's answers, but Tim just couldn't tell what. "I could help people." The heat on Leo's skin created a mirage. "No one expects you to do that." He looked at Tim desperately. "I do. My friends do. Roz does. I could help and heal and do so much, but why don't I want to? I'm sorry." His sentence hung in the air. Tim leaned closer, but the world was quiet. As Leo's body distorted slightly, Tim feared to keep talking. There were no words he could think to say that would help. If he kept talking and made Leo burn his upset away, Tim would never forgive himself. Nothing would be helped by that. "Do you want something to drink?" Tim offered a smile. Leo returned it equally as empty. "Sure." Water would help. That's science. By the time Barry arrived, the boys had taken to gaming instead of talking. 10 rounds of Mortal Kombat, and Tim had yet to win. If Leo gone home before Tim could destroy him, his life would be incomplete. But Barry didn't get it. He just kept asking for more details about the situation. "So, you're stuck in another universe?" "Yes." Leo nodded distantly, his eyes glued to the game. Tim smirked. "Actually, he's part Greek god. Ask him all about that." There wasn't even time for Leo to glare at him. "Greek god?" Barry sighed. "Maybe Bart could take over for you, Leo, and we can get to the bottom of this." Someone was screaming "yes" in the background, but Leo couldn't even think about that. Leo was winning. Barry tried again. "Our best chance is figuring out how you got here in the first place. Do you remember anything strange before the portal? Or any weird smells, sensations, anything?" "Yes!" Leo had won. Again. His 11th time, and somehow with a different character each time. There was never a chance for Tim, not before Leo went home. Said boy finally turned to the Scarlet Speedster. "Also, yes, I do actually. I was having some weird dreams for a while, and I'm not sure if it was anything to do with this." Always worth saying. Everyone caught Barry's sigh of relief. "There was this boy, or man. He kept telling me," Leo put a gruff voice, "you shouldn't be here. This isn't right. Blah, 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 blah. Universe is wrong, and..." Then he whooshed me out of the dream, and the next day the portal opened. Yeah, that probably has something to do with it. Tim laughed. Yeah, that's what I said. What did he look like? Barry asked. Like just some guy. Gonna need a bit more than that. Tall, black. He was wearing a t-shirt and jeans and liked standing in random alleyways. Okay. Barry rushed about, quickly came back with a paper. He sketched up a quick face. It wasn't his best work, but it did the trick. Is this him? Yeah! I think I know your guy. Barry paused for dramatic effect. And? Bart whined, throwing his back into the sofa. Nix Uton. That's your guy. Nix Uton, the last of the monitors, the main in charge of the multiverse. He's a pretty difficult guy to find. Tim brought up the most obvious question. Why would he bring Leo here? That's what I'm wondering. He doesn't just do things on a whim. Leo stood up. If he brought me here, can he bring me back then? I can't imagine he'll want to if he went through all this trouble to get you here. Bart appeared and suddenly in Leo's face. Maybe it has something to do with those powers. Countless emotions flashed on Leo's face. Tim stepped in. We don't know until we ask. We just have to ask. His face dropped. Everyone looked at Barry. With a deep breath, he spoke. I'll try to find him, but it'll take time. It might be best to come up with some other solutions in the meanwhile. He paused to think. You said you have some Greek connections? Maybe you could try Wonder Woman. See if there's anything that can connect our universe to yours. Yeah, Tim nodded, hoping to assure Leo. That's all we have to do. Tim and Leo were taking a stroll through Manchester, Alabama. It was Bart's home turf, however, near as electric and busy as Gotham, but it had its own charm. There was a gentle breeze blowing between Tim's legs, guiding him forward. With Leo as close beside him as he was, they occasionally bumped elbows. He looked nice in afternoon light. Pink and orange consumed the sky so brightly, and others' colors seemed to drain from the world. Leo looked nice in these colors, like a warm painting. A couple nights prior, Tim was writing the finishing touches of some case files in the Batcave. Leo, by this point, came and went as he pleased, and he did just that, appearing behind Tim's chair, hovering over him. Leo's hair fell over his face, and Tim paused his keyboard clicking. If he pulled that hair behind Leo's ear, maybe Tim would have another image to fill his mind, just like all the rest. He didn't, in the end, just kept typing, but not looking away from Leo until the boy looked away first. It took 5 minutes. It was hard not to think about what it might have looked like, tucking his hair behind his ear, but that didn't matter. Their priority was getting Leo home. For now, however, Tim and Leo took a stroll through Manchester. They arrived at the general store. Tim thought after the day they've had, he'd get Leo something nice. Not that he had the chance to. The boys were standing in the snack aisle when the door smashed open. All right, listen up. The woman's shouts reverberated throughout the store. Empty all the cash in the register. She stomped forward. Tim peered over the food. The woman was surely something. Big hair, big guns, and big on show to the world. Wow, Leo whispered. Wow, Tim repeated sarcastically. White lightning has arrived, her voice shrilled. The scene continued, but Tim dragged Leo into a crouch. What do we do? Leo asked, still trying to peer at her through the shelves. We don't do anything. I'll send Bart a text. Wow. Tim pulled his face away. She's a villain. A hot villain. Whatever. Tim slumped down, crossing his arms. They just had to wait like everyone else. Leo joined him on the floor. The register clicked methodically, cash sliding its way into her depthless bags. Soon the sounds finished and Tim started to relax. Oh, and one more thing, the woman purred. Where's that brat, Leo Valdez? Shoot. Leo looked through the shelves again, this time more confused than intrigued. He raised an eyebrow to Tim, but Tim was also focused on White Lightning. Come on, boy. I know you're here. I saw you walk in. She marched around. Men, man the doors. No one leaves until I say so. White Lightning was wreak havoc on the stock market, the people she passed. She was still far enough away. Tim let the crawl to the edge of the store, slow and steady, avoiding sight of the henchmen. He didn't have a destination, but they had to do something. What the? Leo was repeating under his breath, slight lisp coming through. Tim shushed him. We have to wait for Bart. For a speedster, he's pretty slow. That's how it goes. They waited. White Lightning smashed something into a few aisles away. Her henchmen talked in quiet tones just one aisle away. She yelled, Boy, I'm doing you a favor here. Come out and we'll both be rich. Really? White Lightning yelped as Impulse quickly took the guns from her hands. He dropped them on the ground near Tim and Leo. He continued, I swear I remember you saying you weren't doing this stealing thing anymore. She shrugged. Every day is a new day. Fair enough. The fight didn't last long. 2 seconds and White Lightning and her henchmen were tied up outside, yelling about manhandling. Leo was a bit shaken, but Tim had put it off long enough. Leo, Roz is hiring people to find you. He is? Tim hummed. And do you know this? Why? Scarecrow was the same. He was looking for me? Tim hummed. Why didn't you tell me? Leo thrust closer to Tim's face, his own face scrunching up in frustration. There was a lot going on. I'm sorry. Leo stopped making eye contact. Okay, just tell me these things next time. I will, I promise. He brushed his finger over Leo's. The pair sat there until the store cleared.
All right, people, that is chapter 8. Thank you so much for listening, and I appreciate your views. Who's ready for a new end card? Like, comment, and subscribe. Leave kudos on original site. Drink water and sleep tight.